Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome to my Tiny Talks podcast, the show where we'll dive into self-love, inner child healing, and discovering your soul's purpose. I look forward to chatting with you every single week and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's Tiny Talk. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of Tiny Talks. I am in such a good mood today, and I figured this would be the perfect vibe to be in to come on and share with you guys today. So for today, for episode 17, which is pretty crazy to think that we're already on episode 17, is all about self-love. So I do talk quite a bit about self-love and confidence and getting out of our comfort zone and all those things. And I recognize that looking back at previous episodes, I never really touched on ways to actually improve your self-love, yet alone what self-love is. So I will just note that self-love is going to look differently for absolutely everybody. But I'm also recognizing that without self-love and self-appreciation and validation, it's really hard to get out of our comfort zone and to go for those things because we need to have the belief in ourselves that we are capable of doing something before we're able to actually strive and go for those things. So to begin today's episode, I figured it would be important to really just validate and go over what self-love might be and what that might look like for you. So the actual definition of self-love that I found online, and there were a few different takes on what self-love is, of course, because it means different things to everybody, but this was one sentence that I found that I think really encompasses it, especially in the way that I'm going to chat about today. So basically it reads that self-love means having a high regard for your own well-being and happiness. Self-love means taking care of your own needs and not sacrificing your well-being to please others. So I think that very well kind of snapshots what self-love is. So basically recognizing and having a high regard and standards for your own well-being and happiness and not letting other people's needs basically interrupt what we're needing. So I know I'm very guilty of, or I was in the past, dropping everything that I had to do to help other people or putting my emotions aside to tend to other people. And yes, absolutely, there is a time and place that we as humans have to be there for one another, and we have to be able to, validate that for other folks. However, when this starts to get toxic is when we are in that constant cycle of thinking that other people's needs and emotions are more important or superior to ours, which often leads to emotional burnout. It can lead to frustration and anger and resentment. And the reason that it leads to that is because we're operating from such a low-filled cup that we just have nothing left to give. And that is why it is so important to make sure we honor self-love for ourselves and honor what we have, the capability we have in and of ourselves before we're able to give that to other people. So I know this is something that I struggle with big time, and I'm definitely working towards getting better at this because I've recognized that if I'm no good to myself and I'm not at a place that I feel comfortable with who I am and what I need, it's really hard to be able to validate that for other people over time. So I think that this is a really good foundation to start with. So the first thing that I wanted to highlight with saying this is that it's not selfish. I think that we live in a society that views self-love and self-confidence as a very selfish thing. And I'm very curious about that because if we think about it, you and your body right now, and your mind, your heart, your system, that is all that you will ever have. That is your physical body while you are here on earth living this experience. That is all that you will ever know. So to say that it's selfish to love and appreciate and validate and honor who you are, to me, I just don't quite understand how that could be selfish. Because at the end of the day, we truly only do have ourselves. We can only guarantee ourselves. Only us can hold ourselves accountable to accomplish the things that we want to do. Only we can take care of ourselves and know what foods we're eating. Only we can take care of ourselves and know how we're nourishing our body, right? So I just want to highlight that self-love is not selfish. It is a part of life. It is something that needs to be normalized more and more, because if we can't love ourselves first, how in the heck are we supposed to know how other people are supposed to love us, or to be able to set those boundaries for how other people treat us? So I just want to give that permission that self-love and self-confidence is not selfish. It is a beautiful journey and process to get there. And I can guarantee you, the closer that you become with having that self-love and self-confidence, the more you'll be able to stand up for yourself, to go for those things, to take leaps of faith, because you're just more sure of yourself and there's a lot less unknown and people being able to manipulate how you respond to things when we have kind of that lower self-confidence. So today I wanted to go through 5 different ways to help us improve our self-love. And again, this is not a blanket list. This is not a one-size-fits-all. These are just 5 ways that I've recognized that have really, really helped me. I've been on this journey for about 2 years of trying to grow my self-love and self-confidence, and really just got to a point where I recognized that I didn't have any self-confidence. I allowed friends in my life to manipulate me. If they thought something that I thought was a good idea was a bad idea, I automatically wouldn't do it. I would change my thoughts and perceptions based on other people's thoughts and perceptions. And this led me to operate from a very, very low frequency, have a lot of negative views towards myself and just a lot of anger, because I recognized that I wasn't speaking my truth. And over time, when we don't speak our truth, we are really just invalidating ourselves over and over again, which we as humans, that is one of the biggest things that we seek, is validation and connection. So we need to make sure that we're able to give that to ourselves. And again, before I get into this list of 5 things, I just want to say that this isn't an overnight process. This is something that takes time, takes work. I had to get professional help to kind of dive into some of these things. So just know that if you are really struggling with your self-love, self-appreciation, know that there might be some under-rooting issues that stemmed into that. Maybe it was a past relationship. Maybe it's some inner child work. Maybe it was a traumatic experience that you went through. Right? Who's to say? Again, it's very different for each and every one of us. So recognizing where you're at in this moment and where you want to go from here, and honoring for yourself that you even want to go down that road, go down that journey to do the work. I think that that is an incredible way to just thank yourself and honor yourself for wanting to show up as the best, beautiful version of yourself. So the first thing that I have on here to help improve our self-love is to listen to your body and to try to give it what it needs. So what I mean by this is we are living in a very go, go, go society. I think that we've been like this for a while, and technology definitely doesn't help with this. And, we're just going through the routines of a day, and we often forget to check in with ourselves. And so this could simply just mean asking ourselves a couple times in the run of a day, am I needing something to drink? Have I eaten today? How's my emotional state? How am I feeling? Right? So actually getting that mind-body connection is huge. So taking a moment to take a step back, maybe it's closing your eyes and just being present in your body for a moment. And I know that that might not be safe for everybody. So again, start with what's comfortable for you. Maybe it's sitting down in a room, looking around at the space around you and doing a grounding exercise, right? It's about bringing ourselves back to our body so we're able to get to our needs to be able to fill those. If we think of our inner child or our younger self, when we were hungry or we needed cuddled or we were sick or we wanted up or we wanted down, whatever it was, we would cry to get our caregiver's attention, right? We are taught since the time we are born into this world that if we have a need and we communicate that, there's something that is going to come in and fill that. So whether that be mom or dad or whoever the caregiver is, feeding that child, putting that child to sleep, cuddling that child, right? So it's no different when we grow up. We still have needs. We still need to be loved. We still need food. We still need drinks. We still need to have our rest, right? So not forgetting that although we don't cry anymore to get those needs, it's okay to still check in with ourselves to say, okay, what is potentially that silent cry going on in my body that I need to honor for myself? So a huge acronym that is used is called HALT. So it's hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So checking in with ourselves, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? What can I do to maybe fill some of those voids? So basically what this is doing is it's validating our emotions with ourselves and giving ourselves that reassurance and those basically resources. So kind of filling that cup back up for ourselves. So this is something that is really, really crucial for self-love because you're actually beginning to listen to your body and give it what it needs, which is exactly the right path to begin self-love. So that is the first one. So listening to your body and trying your absolute best to give it what it needs. Okay. The second one that I have on here is keeping promises that you make to yourself. And I cannot stress this one enough. So basically what I mean by this is how often in the run of a day do you say, I'm going to go to the gym today and I'm going to make this for supper and then I'm going to do all these chores and then I'm going to do this and do that, right? We like to tell ourselves all these things that we're going to do, which is great. But every time that we don't actually do those things, we're actually letting ourselves down, which in turn lowers our self-love because our mind starts to think we're going to do all these things and then we don't do them. So we're actually doing ourselves a disservice. And the way that I like to look at this is, imagine you have a friend in your life that just keeps saying they're going to be there, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and then they just don't do it. Over time, we start to get a little fed up and frustrated of saying, maybe I need to have a conversation with this friend of saying, you're making all these promises, but you're not holding them up. That's not really working with me. That's making me feel really uneasy and unpredictable. It's the same with ourselves. How can we ask ourselves the same way that we wouldn't accept that from a friend? How come we are allowing ourselves to accept that from ourselves, right? Making promises to yourself. And if this is something that you're doing, I encourage you to make a list. What is your to-do list? Maybe it's for the week. That is what I like to do. Make a to-do list for a week span. And what I'll do is I'll highlight the things that have to be done that day. So non-negotiables that have to be done that day. The rest is on there, so I know that it has to get done. But if it doesn't get done today, I know that it'll get done tomorrow. And the reason that I do that is because I'm setting myself up for success instead of setting myself up for failure. So by doing that, I'm able to keep the promises that I'm making for myself. And again, if you think back to a time where, let's say you told yourself you were going to go to the gym and then you didn't do it. We usually sit on the couch after or lay in bed after and we feel really, really crummy that we didn't do that. And we start to catastrophize in our mind of, well, maybe if I would have just done it, like I'd feel better now and all those things. And then our mind is spending a lot of time doing self-hate and self-sabotage. Whereas if we went to the gym and kept that promise to ourselves, I guarantee you would not regret that. I cannot think of a single time that I've made a promise to myself to do something and then did it and regretted it. Your body will always thank you for keeping those promises that you made to yourself. And it's almost like a reward of when you do that thing, your mind likes to light up. Like, we did that thing, we accomplished something, and it's a little self-victory. So keeping promises you make to yourself is, again, a really, really great place to start. And make sure that you're setting yourself up for success instead of setting yourself up for failure. So find a routine and things that work for you. Okay. Number 3, which is my favorite and something that I have talked about quite a bit on this podcast, which is getting outside of your comfort zone. So again, I know this can seem extremely obvious in a way, but I think it's something that we often forget about or try to push under the rug, because if we think about getting out of our comfort zone, it's uncomfortable, right? We don't always like to get out of our comfort zone, but I'm here to tell you that the more that we challenge ourselves to get out of our comfort zone, the more our mind and body will just begin to naturally look for things that get us outside of our comfort zone. So making small challenges for yourself. It helps to expand our mind to show that we are safe in doing those things. So what I mean by this is often when we stay in our comfort zone, it's because we're scared of the unsureness, of the unknown, of what's going to happen. But the more that we can challenge ourselves to do tiny little things outside of our comfort zone over and over again over time, the more that our mind will retrain itself to see, oh, okay, like if I do this, I can potentially grow here. Oh, that wasn't so bad. I actually felt really safe here, right? So think of a time that you've gone outside your comfort zone or did something outside your comfort zone and it absolutely terrified you. It scared you, you didn't want to do it, but you did it anyways. Think of how good that always feels after you do it. Challenging ourselves as human beings is one of the best things that we can do for self-love and self-confidence. Because what better way to grow your self-love than to literally challenge the mind in which told you that you couldn't do something? You're basically doing a nah, I told you so to your brain, which is actually a really positive thing if you think about it, because you were scared to do something and you decided to go for it anyways. So find little tiny ways that you can get outside of your comfort zone often and reflect on how that makes you feel. Reflect on if you felt better after, if it scared you, if it hit you after that, wow, like that was really nice. I want to do that again. Your body will just start to seek that and want to challenge yourself more and more. But again, I recognize that this can be a hard thing to just start up from the get-go. So get some support. Have people there to hold you accountable. Write it down. What is your mission when you're getting outside your comfort zone? What are you going to be doing? How much reassurance can you give yourself before going into that? And one thing I do just want to say about getting out of your comfort zone is that you will never actually be ready to get out of your comfort zone, right? We can try to prepare all we want to get out. But the best thing that we can do is to take that leap of faith, to just trust ourselves that anything and everything that we need to accomplish, whatever it is, we have within ourselves. So challenge yourself, get outside your comfort zone. I promise you, you'll thank yourself more for doing the things that scared you than not doing those things. Okay, number 4. This one's going to seem so obvious, but I promise you over time, this one has absolutely changed my life, and I truly believe would change and will change anybody's life. And that is to try and tell yourself kind things. So again, going back to the comfort zone, going out of taking a leap of faith, our mind likes to tell us so many negative things, right? Because that's easy for us to think about. Our mind can wrap its head around that a lot easier. It's a lot more comfortable. We're very good at that self-sabotaging talk, keeping ourselves small. But telling yourself kind things not only improves self-love, it improves self-confidence, and it also shows other people that you're able to stick to your boundaries and stick to what you know. So by telling yourself kind things, you're raising your vibration, you're raising your frequency, you're honoring all those good things about yourself and knowing that they're true. And so the thing about telling yourself kind things isn't about, again, an overnight switch of just going in the mirror and, oh, I'm so beautiful and I'm this and I'm that. And hopefully over time it can get to a point of that. But I do recognize that in the beginning of starting to tell yourself kind things, it can seem very uncomfortable. So I actually have a quick story thinking back roughly 4 years ago. I was at a very low place with my self-confidence, and I had a friend at the time who just seemed to thrive in self-confidence and self-love and self-belief, and she just seemed very sure of herself. And I very much looked up to that because I wanted to get to that place one day. And so I asked her blatantly one day, how is it that you love yourself so much? And this was probably the weirdest question that I've ever asked another human being, but I'll never forget her answer. She said, every morning and every night before I go to bed or when I wake up, I look in the mirror and I tell myself 3 things that I love about myself. And I thought, oh, sure, okay, that seems easy enough. I'll try that. And so I went home, and that night I looked in the mirror and nothing could come out of my mouth. I felt so embarrassed. It was just me, myself in the bathroom. I began to be shameful. I began to get emotional. I couldn't tell myself one good thing. And looking back on this, I recognize that, again, it's not an easy overnight process. But that was the day that I began to shift and realize how low my self-love was and recognize that it did indeed need a lot of work. So if that is you, and when you look in the mirror, you just have nothing kind to say to yourself, start with that. Honor that for yourself. Where does this come from? What feelings do I get in my body when I try to tell myself nice things? Does this come from something in my inner child? Does this come from something in my past? How can I honor my body with how it's feeling right now? And so one huge thing that I found helpful, and this is something that I learned in therapy, was something called a bridge statement. So basically, if we think of affirmations, it's usually, I am blank. And so what a bridge statement does is it basically takes that pressure off ourselves that we are not fully that identity yet. So saying, I am beautiful, maybe we don't resonate with that yet, but we want to. So what we do is we throw in the word, it's possible, or there's a possibility. So there's a possibility that I'm not as ugly as I think I am. There is a potential that I'm not as large as I think I am. There's a possibility I'm smarter than I think I am, right? So basically that word possibly allows our mind not to go into such a state of react and freeze or overwhelm, right? Because we're not saying that's 100% true, but we're also saying that the full negative statement isn't true. So it's kind of meeting ourselves in the middle. So that's what I started to do for a while. I would look in the mirror. I would giggle quite often saying this because I just thought it was funny that I was staring at myself in the mirror. And over time, it just started to become more and more natural, where I would look in the mirror and I would begin to see a couple good things instead of just all the small things that we tell ourselves. And also thinking back to that time where my self-love and validation was very low, I noticed going into work, I would have my head hung low. I wouldn't stand up straight. I had very low self-confidence, and that comes off of you and radiates off of you, right? We can tell when someone feels good in their skin and feels confident and is going for something. And we as humans often look at that and we strive to be like that. Yet when we try to get there for ourselves, it's icky and it's uncomfortable. And that's because I don't think it's normalized. It's normal to be the one at the back of the room, to be quiet, to stay hushed, to do all those things. But I promise you, you are so worthy and beautiful and strong and amazing and smart and talented and worthy to be able to tell yourself those things. So I encourage you right now, even just to ask yourselves, where am I at that positive self-validation? How do I respond when I look at myself in the mirror? How do I respond when I go try on a new outfit at the mall, right? Whatever it is, what are those conversations you're having with yourself? Because I guarantee you that that is very much trickling into your reality, your surroundings, and your overall vibration as a person. So beginning to tell yourself kind things slowly over time will indeed drastically grow your self-love, which will then trickle into so many other areas of your life. Okay, so obviously that was a huge, important one that I'm very, very passionate about, and I get so humbled and happy when I hear women just be kind to themselves. It's just so refreshing and beautiful. And men, you too. It's just so wonderful when someone's just sure of themselves and they stick to that. And even if we fake it till we make it, that's a journey, and we're still just honoring that for ourselves. So number 5, the last one that I have on here for today for growing our self-love is sticking to your boundaries. So basically think of what that means in resignation with your life. So sticking to your boundaries, basically honoring and maintaining your boundaries. So this is not only crucial for self-love, but this is crucial to live a happy life. So a huge way that we let ourselves down is by not honoring our boundaries. And we just begin to disappoint ourselves over and over again. So again, think of those times where maybe you had something planned on a Saturday that you were going to do, whether it's for self-improvement or just something you really wanted to do. And a family member or a friend asks you to do something. And you know that you don't want to do that and you really want to do the other thing. However, you find yourself saying yes or agreeing or committing to that thing. And then oftentimes the whole time that we're there, we're thinking about the things that we should have been doing, right? So every time we do that over and over again, and this could be in many different scenarios, that could even be with a friend that you said, this person's not very good for me. I'm going to try to distance myself or to not talk to them. And then you find yourself engaging and falling into that trap over and over again. And so the thing about boundaries that is so important is that we stick to them, right? And so again, that's like making those promises to ourselves that we're then not honoring. We are the only ones that know how that's going to affect us, which is why we have those boundaries in place for a reason. And when we're able to stick to our boundaries and stick to what we're doing and what we know we're supposed to do, we're always going to thank ourselves for doing that. Our body is going to thank you by just feeling at rest and accomplished for doing that thing that you said that you were going to do. Again, it's like saying you're going to go to the gym or you're going to eat clean, and then you don't go to the gym and you eat garbage food. You start to feel really bad about yourself, like you didn't maintain that promise that you made to yourself. Our boundaries are the same thing. And I know that boundaries can be really, really hard, and these can be hard conversations to have. However, I can guarantee you that the good people in your life and those who are in alignment and respect you will respect your boundaries. I guarantee you that till the end of time. And those who do not understand or accept your boundaries, I definitely encourage you to look at it in a way of maybe they aren't serving your life in a way that they once did. Maybe that relationship is just no longer what you're needing in your life. So sticking to your boundaries and honoring that for yourself of this is what I'm needing. I'm going to make sure that I give myself that and not allow other people to take that away from me. So that is a huge thing. Again, our boundaries lead into pretty much all these other points. Keeping promises you make to yourself, listening to your body and honoring what it's trying to tell you, right? Sticking to our boundaries and sticking to our gut and what we've set for ourselves is so, so, so huge in self-love. So I hope you guys enjoyed those 5 ways to hopefully begin your journey to improve self-love and to work towards that. And again, I've said this a couple times, but I just like to really stress that this isn't an overnight process. I've been on this journey for almost 2 years, and there's days where I look at myself and I say mean things, and I have to catch myself and say, you know that that's not true. You know what that is your mind trying to tell you something. And let's say, for example, it's me looking in the mirror and not being happy with my appearance. I can then do a self-check-in with, okay, have I been eating clean? Have I been drinking enough water? Have I been going to the gym and moving my body? If I've not been doing those things, I can then have another conversation with myself of, okay, how are we going to get our butt in gear to make sure we're honoring those promises to ourselves that are then going to trickle into our self-appearance and all those other things. So I encourage you to begin with where you are at right now in this moment. Maybe you have amazing self-love, and I am so proud of you for getting to that point. It takes a lot of courage and work to get there. And if you are very new to this journey, I just want you to know that you are most definitely not alone. It is a journey, it is a process, but I guarantee you it is such a beautiful, beautiful spot to be in when you're able to just look in the mirror and not be your worst enemy. Again, remember, give yourself a little hug right now if you can, if you're not driving. Put your arms around your shoulders and just thank yourself for everything that you do. Your body does everything that it needs to get you to where you are in this moment. So making sure we're thanking ourselves and being kind to ourselves for that each and every day. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode of Tiny Talks. I look forward to chatting with you next week. Until next time. Thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode of Tiny Talks. If you're looking to connect, you can find me on Instagram at JessieBrown13. I look forward to chatting with you all next week. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.